Andrea, I am so excited to welcome you to the show. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're going to have such a good conversation. You and I were doing a little pre-show banter before I hit record, and I think both having this recognition of wow, what a what a journey it's been when our paths first crossed, and what I've done since, what you've done since, and this is the thing that I love about my work, and having a coaching school and coming across the path of so many incredible women who have stepped forward to learn from me, be in my community, that kind of thing, and then really do incredible things with their work. And that's you. And you had reached out, letting us know about you have this new book out, which we're going to get into. I was just so impressed and so
Aw.
proud of you and excited for you. And I know what you're doing in this world. And, we're going to get into that in that conversation. But for everybody tuning in, Andrea came through our first ever coaching class. I had this idea to create like my own coaching school, this own coach certification. I just kind of got really frustrated with what I saw as a gap in the market
Yeah.
of, great coaches who didn't understand business. And so they were never going to succeed as coaches. And then amazing people who are great at marketing and business, but they really didn't understand what coaching was, but it sounded cool. And so they would just call themselves coaches. Right. And so neither one of those things were going to work. And so I jumped in and kind of created my thing and, hung my shingle up. And Andrea walked in our doors. And I want to just give everyone an opportunity to, hear more about your career path. Like what were you interested in school, and how did that inform your first few steps as a career woman?
Oh boy. Um, I have had so many jobs and careers. I've had over maybe 10 or 12 careers in about 8 or 9 different industries, and I don't even know how many jobs. So in my
Mm-hmm.
20s, I was mainly a teacher to be on my sister's schedule, which we'll talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And I was pursuing an acting career. And then by the time I got in my 30s, I had stopped acting and had founded a nonprofit, but I was doing that mainly as a passion and not a profession. And I was always really good at getting jobs, and I was very good at changing industries because I had highly transferable skills. And so I was always just changing. So when I got bored or I was unhappy, I would just leave that job or career and move on to the next one. So I was very
Mm-hmm.
restless, but
Mm-hmm.
there was always a part of me that hated working for other people. So I did really well in situations where I had a boss that left me alone and did not
Mm-hmm.
micromanage me. And I think if you looked back at my childhood, there were
Mm-hmm.
signs of being an entrepreneur that shouldn't have
Mm-hmm.
been ignored, but I didn't have any role models to be an
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
And about 5 years ago, I made a big decision to leave Los Angeles, which is where I lived my entire adult life. And
Mm-hmm.
I stumbled onto coaching quite by accident. I don't even know how I came across it, but I had been doing some career coaching unofficially and making a somewhat decent living at it. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
no, I want to do this for real. And
Mm-hmm.
so I signed up for a very formal ICF certified program that was 10
Mm-hmm.
months. And it kind of reminded me of university. It was very stiff, it was very structured. And then somehow I came across an ad for your program at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, and I felt like it had a lot more balance. Like that was a very
Mm-hmm.
left brain program, and your program was very right brain, but it also had
Mm-hmm.
this sort of underlying business structure as well. And so
Mm-hmm.
I did both programs at the same time, which I actually don't recommend doing two things like that at the same time.
Like two people talking in either ear, like, wait, hold on,
Oh,
what,
it
what?
was,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a lot, but it was exactly what I needed at the
Mm-hmm.
very best time.
Mm-hmm.
And you and even my other coach said, just
Mm-hmm.
do whatever feels right, do what you're good
Mm-hmm.
at. And what I was really good at was getting jobs. What I was really
Mm-hmm.
good at was changing careers. And so I ended up starting a career coaching program. Initially it was one-on-one, and then I eventually got my act together and created a group career coaching program.
Yes, I remember that. And I remember really feeling that about you. Yeah, because you had so many jobs and you were so good at reinventing yourself and just
Yeah.
really owning that and being like, yeah, I'm just going to move over here now. And then it doesn't have to be this, people, it's like, they just they can't see it. They can't imagine it. You're like, no problem. Like, let's just shift over here. Let's shift over here. And
Yeah.
sometimes those shifts, because I've gone through some significant career shifts in my day.
Yeah.
And so often they're connected to kind of what's happening in your personal life. Like I can't work like this anymore. Or
Sure.
like physically this doesn't work for me anymore. I'm getting sick, or my family needs me more, or I don't want to live in this place anymore. I'm moving out of LA. Now I'm going to move over here. Well, what do those opportunities look like? And I know a lot of our listeners, have dealt with career shifts, or there might be in one right now. And that's the beautiful thing about coaching, either being that coach or having a coach when you're going through those shifts, is that you realize you don't have to do this alone. Like you can get support. There is really, a process that you can follow so you don't feel so freaking weird or crazy or alone as you do it, because sometimes that is how you feel, because you could just stay there. Like, why are you leaving? Things do look good, right? And so you went right into coaching, like really identifying, okay, career coaching is my thing. I'm going to both work one-on-one and with groups. Take us back to that time. Like, what was that like? Did you know, okay, this is it. I want to keep doing this. And then how did you evolve into whatever was next?
Well, I know I didn't want to do it forever. I mean, I'm really good at it, but I knew it wasn't my life's calling, because I already had a nonprofit, which I know we'll talk about, but I knew I was really good at it, and I was good at helping people. And so I started with the one-on-one first. And when you do enough one-on-ones, oh, my cat has joined the show. Okay.
Hi, Kitty. That's right. My dog's in the office. It's fine.
Oh, awesome.
I love it. All the animals. Bring them in.
But when you do enough one-on-ones where you are saying the same thing over and over, you start to drive yourself a little crazy. I mean, forget your clients for a second. You drive yourself crazy. And then you realize the value of creating a group coaching program. And then I actually hired another coach to kind of help me specifically put that together, what that looked like, how to market it. And I do have two individual elements still to that program that people really, really love. I also got really serious about raising my prices and realizing that what I teach people, they take with them for life. And I had the timing of this podcast is so perfect. So this last weekend, I was in Boston, and I just had the pleasure of meeting one of my most successful clients ever. And and so this young lady came to me, and she knew her dream job. She knew exactly what she wanted to do, which is kind of the place you need to be when you hired me. You have to know, you have to have that clarity. But she had no experience in the profession at all, and she had no connections at all. But she knew what she wanted to do, and there were no sort of obvious barriers. Like, she didn't have to go get a law degree, for example.
Right.
And she had such a passion for it, so she understood her why. And when I have someone like that, I can help them get there, because I can help them with the how. I can show them how to get there. And a week after finishing my program, she landed not only her dream job, but with her dream company.
Wow.
Yeah. And her salary has increased 35% in 14 months.
Boom.
I know.
And a good ROI.
Yeah. Oh, huge. And she's just, it's amazing to see her blossom. It's just, it feels really good.
And it's so fun to talk to a fellow coach, because like, we get this. It is such a pleasure when you, like, when I saw you, I was like, oh yeah, look what she did. And then y'all, we're going to talk more about this, but Andrea sends me her book. I'm like, oh my God, I'm looking at the pages. Like, this is like surreal. It's very substantial. It's very well done. It's very professional. And I mean, the story is just incredible. But that feeling, so I know, because again, I want to point this out, because I know a lot of our listeners, like, not everyone is a coach who's tuning in, but I think some people are considering, like, well, what is that really? And do I want to do that? Do I have what that takes? I feel like it's one of the most gratifying paths you can walk, because of the impact you can make on a client's life or on a group of clients' lives, if you're called for group work, which Andrea was, and I was too. And it's just been such a powerful experience. And everything is really like a springboard into the next. You
Yeah.
take this and you springboard over here, and then you're going to springboard into your book, and then you're going to springboard into this thing, and you're going to springboard to that thing. And you don't know. I mean, I didn't anyway. I didn't know where this is all going to freaking go. I just keep showing up. I just keep showing up with this level of curiosity and faith that there is always at least one person who is looking for what I've got. And what I love about you, Andrea, is like, you just knew I can do career coaching. I'm freaking good at that. I've got this nailed. But what was it? Was there like a piece in the process or in the timeline where you said, okay, now it's time for me to build out the next thing? Because you've been working. Like, you obviously said you had that,
Yeah.
the nonprofit. Tell us more about how you really springboarded off the coaching work into what you've built out in the last few years.
Okay, sure. So I have my nonprofit, which is dedicated to fighting primary liver cancer, and I've had that for quite some time. And over the last probably 5 years, I have found myself coaching cancer patients and caregivers. And when I became certified as a coach, and that was on LinkedIn, I was being contacted by people to become a cancer coach, and by these other companies. And I just could not charge people at that time in their lives, because I know what that's like, and I just couldn't bring myself to do it. It's okay if that's what you want to do. I'm not going to judge anyone, but I personally couldn't do it. But I understand the value and the necessity of that. I really do. And because if a cancer patient or caregiver calls me, I'm there with them. And so I was starting to get a little frustrated, and what I did was I really started meditating and praying. Well, I meditate every day anyway, but really meditating and praying. And I also chant about how can I combine these talents that I know I have, and they are writing and coaching and teaching and advocacy. What can I do with these 4 things that truly are my gifts? And around that time, this was about 2.5 years ago, a friend of mine told me about this entrepreneurial competition called the Astellas C3 Prize. And the C3 is Changing Cancer Care. And it's co-sponsored by Robert Herjavec from Shark Tank, whose mother died of ovarian cancer.
Oh.
Yeah, so he's very passionate about changing cancer care. And I was like, this is it, man. Like, this is my shot. I have to come up with an amazing idea. And I basically was like, okay, universe, this is it. Okay, bring on the idea. Come on.
Ready.
Yeah, ready. and I kept thinking about it, and it just hit me, because when you hear, you have cancer, or in my case, your sister has cancer, it's such a devastating moment. And it doesn't matter how much education you have, I call it the sea of chaos that you are thrown into. And then on top of that, you often have to make these very intelligent, rational decisions about treatment very quickly. And you're thrown all these acronyms. And I was like, man, it's like you have to go back to school. And I was like, oh my God, it's Cancer University. So I entered this entrepreneurial competition. I had nothing but the concept. I threw together some web pages, and out of over 160 entries that year from 21 countries, I got in the top 10.
Yes.
I know, yeah. And so I was interviewed by the Astellas executives to make it to the top 5. And I didn't make it to the top 5 because I only had the concept, but they loved it. They got it. They saw the need for it. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm onto something here. So, but there was still this fear, because I was like, oh gosh, cancer space is noisy, man. Like it's one thing to have a nonprofit dedicated to a very specific kind of cancer, but to try to conquer cancer in the for-profit space. Yeah. And the for-profits, like, oh boy. So I just spent 6 months vetting the idea, and I talked to patients and caregivers and survivors and advocates and doctors and pharma, and every relationship I pretty much have built over the last 15 plus years in the space. I talked to everybody, and every person said, yes, this is needed. And so last year, I co-founded. So I found a good co-founder, and I've co-founded Cancer University. and it's a for-profit social benefit digital health startup.
Mm-hmm.
And we did our beta test last fall, and we are going into a pilot program. Hopefully by the end of this year, we'll have the contract signed.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been pitching investors to raise a seed round, and it's been amazing and awesome and scary and all the things it should be.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh my gosh. I mean, and that's another thing that connected you and I, is that we both have had
Yes.
sisters touched by cancer,
Yeah.
and our lives have been touched by cancer. I mean, really, if you're a human in this time, you've been touched by cancer in some way, but you and I both had a sister.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Who
that's,
died young.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, which is rare and not supposed to happen, but it does happen. It does happen to, a small group of us. And I just, again, want to just thank you and congratulate you for answering this call, of honoring the assignment.
That's exactly what it feels like,
The
Jenny.
assignment.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So tell more about that. Like, what, because obviously it's like, you've done all these things, you can change careers, you have to freaking figure it out, and you'll just figure this one out too. But talk to me about the assignment.
It feels like I am following a path that someone has already designed for me. So whether you believe in God, I use the word universe, but it really feels predestined. It's a little bit scary sometimes. It feels like I know here are these sort of milestones I need to get to, and I don't necessarily know how. And sometimes I'm given indications, but here are these little milestones, and here's what I need to do next. But I mean, it really feels like I'm being led, and this is what you're supposed to be doing, and this is what all those years of building those relationships with my nonprofit, this is what you're supposed to be doing, and this is how you need to do it. And it's you mentioned, I think, earlier about having faith, and it's a lot about having faith. There's a lot of just surrendering. There's a lot of surrendering involved.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How does and we're going to talk more about your book, because you do an incredible job of your sister's voice coming through and sharing her. How does she influence your days? How is her voice, in your ear, in your heart, as you show up for this? Do you have, because I have my own stories about my own sister. I'm just curious, as someone who knows what it's like to lose a sister and feel like they're so connected to the work, and like they are with you on this assignment, but are there certain signs, certain things that you receive from her as you execute on this assignment?
Well, I say a prayer to her every night, and I've had since the day she died. And but I talk to her more now. During the day, I talk to her more, and I'll ask for a sign, or I'll just, before we go into pitch investors, I'll okay, just just be there with us, and help me through this, or yeah, I will say, give me a sign. Yeah, I talk more to her now, like actually out loud.
Yeah,
than I
I'm
used
glad
to.
that you do. I'm glad that you do, and I feel like, and we might have people tuning in right now who have lost a loved one, a sibling, a parent, a friend, who, when you're in the earlier stages, I found from my own journey, it's like, it's like you talked about the sea of chaos. I was in the sea of grief. I'm just like, and there's no rule book, and you're just spending for yourself. And for me, I went through phases of the grief, and then, my sister's been gone for 25 years now. Well, not in her body. She's still here, but it's just a different form. And it's just a new way to connect. And like you said, you can have those conversations. You might not, they might not physically be in their body to be able to say words back to you, but you can hear. You can hear. It's just trusting that, and knowing that you're never alone on the quest. So let's talk about your book, Better Off Bald. What a great name. And this is a photo of your sister, Adrienne. Am I saying her name correctly? Adrienne?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Adrienne, Better Off Bald, A Life in 147 Days. So you obviously get the idea for Cancer University. You're just like, oh my gosh, I'm going for it. This has, it just, yes, I'm freaked out, but I'm going to do it because it's
Yeah.
preordained. It's the assignment. I'm going to just keep showing up for the assignment. And then did the idea come as Cancer University was being birthed? Like, how did the book, where's the genesis of the idea? And tell us about your process of bringing this to life, because this is very powerful material. I mean,
Thank
I'm
you.
guessing it wasn't easy to write. So I would just like to
No.
know how the idea came and then how you executed, how you made the idea real.
I knew I was going to write a story about me and Adrienne when I was raising her. I just didn't think I was going to write that story.
Okay,
And
so you raised your sister.
yeah, yeah, I
And
raised
what
her.
was that all about? Why were you raising your sister?
Um, Adrienne came to visit me when she was 8 years old. I was living in Los Angeles. I graduated from college. I was 22. She came out for Christmas vacation, and what was supposed to be a 2-week stay turned into a permanent living situation when our mother decided she didn't want to be a mother anymore. And I did not put it together at the time, but it was about 3 days before our mother's 50th birthday. And I'm not sure if she was having a midlife crisis. I do know that she had really had a difficult time. She had lost her nursing license due to drug use, and her life had become really unstable. And my sister's life, as a result, had become really unstable. And I was very concerned. And my mother called the day after Christmas and said that she didn't want to be a mother anymore. And she wanted me to take Adrienne and basically not to put her on the plane to go back home.
Wow.
And I just told my mom, I said, well, if I take her now, I'm not going to give her back. I will fight you. And that's what ended up happening. My mother changed her mind about 6 to 8 months later. And eventually we went to court. I sued for custody and I won. And so I was Adrienne's legal guardian all through my 20s. So I raised her from the time she was 8 years old until she died at the age of 15 from stage 4 liver cancer.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Thank you for sharing that. That is,
yeah.
But again, goes into that whole preordained, like, these things where you're the one who was meant to be with her on this path, and then to usher her through the illness and through her death and through the freaking maze that is cancer. And then look at what you're doing now. I mean, these things are never freaking easy. I mean, you were 22 years old. I look at what I was doing at 22, like raising a child. Wow, plenty of people do it, but I mean, it's probably not what you thought you might be doing at 22. So you doing this, she's just integrated into your life. You become her mother, the woman who's raising her, and then she gets sick. How long did she fight cancer?
It's the subtitle of the book. She fought cancer for 147
days.
Yeah, that's it.
Less than a year.
Yeah, less than 5 months. Yeah.
Less than 5 months. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was fast.
It was very fast. Yeah.
That was very fast.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just freaking heartbreaking. And you're like, how does cancer happen to kids? Like, it's just not fair. It's not right.
No,
and then you're thrown into this mix and you see what one goes through. So you said you always knew that you were going to write this book. Was it when Cancer University came onto the scene that the book came through and you really just made space for it? Talk to us about your creation process.
No, I mean, I knew I'd write a story. I knew I'd write our story. I mean, Adrienne, when I was raising her, long before cancer came into the picture, but I didn't know I was going to write this story. Like, I didn't know this was what was going to happen. And then about a year after she died, like, I knew, okay, I'm supposed to write this story. And the smartest thing I ever did in terms of research for the book was I interviewed every single person who would give me interviews. And so their memories were incredibly fresh. So even though I didn't start writing it right away.
Connected to her, you mean?
Connected to her, connected to this time period in our lives. And so I did that. And then I started writing the book and kind of like spurts and here and there. But what really got me going was I went to an amazing workshop at UCLA Extension that was focused on memoir. And I had this breakthrough about the structure of the book. So it's written like a journal because Adrienne kept a journal that she started before she ever got sick, and then she kept it going while she was sick. But I also had a medical journal. And that's when it really hit me in this workshop. And so I brought in some sample pages like the second or third day of the workshop, and people loved the journal concept. And I was like, oh, this is how I'm supposed to do this. And so I went on and got my master's degree from USC in writing, and my thesis was the first draft of this book. The very messy, shitty first draft, but it was the first draft, right?
Yes.
And that was 11 years ago. So, it was, it's been a long time, and there have just been a lot of stops and starts and put it down for a year and pick it back up. But I knew I eventually would get back to it. I knew I would. And 2 years ago, I did a podcast. I did the book as a podcast. I told the book in real time the way it happened to us, only later. So May 16th, 2001 was May 16th, 2017. And that was really a test for me because I had been told by too many agents, literary agents, that the story was amazing, the writing was excellent, but they just couldn't sell it. It was too sad. It's too sad. Now, it's not a Hollywood ending. It's not a Disney ending, and that podcast has been it's done so well that I still get downloads every day off my personal website. My nonprofit got volunteers because of that podcast, people reaching out. My nonprofit ended up getting more donations because of that podcast. And I promoted it at the very beginning, but I haven't put any promotion money toward it since in over 2 years. And I mean, every day there's downloads.
So you did like 147 episodes?
I did 40 episodes. So they were kind of like chunks. There's 40 chapters to the book. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you didn't do it by the day. You did it by the chapter. This is important. I want our listeners to take in because so much of our work is figuring out how to slice and dice these pieces. It's like, how do we slice and dice our story? How do we slice and dice it into a book, into a program, into a membership, into a podcast? And so it's so helpful to hear, like, how did you do this? What was your thought process? Okay. So you basically took it in chapter form and spoke it. It was like the spoken word, shared it. And then now you've got it in the written form in the book. Yeah. Okay. And so now what's the book doing? It's out now, right? Like, when did it launch?
It launched on October 15th. And October is Liver Cancer Awareness Month, which most people don't know because all they know is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And so I wanted to make sure it launched in October. That was very important. And it hit number 1 bestseller status in 3 different categories.
Nice.
Yeah. And the category I think I'm proudest of is the sibling category. So I'm really happy about that.
Sibling. Oh my gosh, you're making me like, oh, it's so amazing, y'all. Everyone check it out. Better Off Bald. We'll hook it up in the show notes. A Life in 147 Days by Andrea Wilson Woods. And I love the picture of her and you meeting Dave Navarro of James Addiction. So many things. Like, I'm going to dig deep into this. I've got, we're coming up on the holidays, and it's like I kind of clear my decks for a few weeks. And if I could just have my dream, it would be to just read books every day for hours on end. That is
Me too.
my favorite thing to do. And oh my gosh, so what would have been your biggest kind of lesson learned with bringing this book out there? You had agents saying we can't sell it, it's too sad, it's too blah blah. Did you just decide, how did you publish it then? What were the choices you made based on what you were hearing and then your own desire to get the work out there?
Like I said, I tested it. The podcast was a test. And that feedback was enough for me to go, okay, there's an audience for this book. I didn't want to do everything by myself, though. I mean, I'm very tech savvy. I learned very quickly, but I didn't really see that was a good use of my time. And I've gotten better about that as I've gotten older, about what it is. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it, right? And so I worked with Scribe Media, and they only do nonfiction, and most people who go to them are business owners or coaches who are looking in some way to package what they sell in a book form, and
Mhm.
and they are not writers. So I was a little bit of an unusual client for them in that I came with them with a fully formed manuscript at that point that had been through numerous drafts and editors and was really polished. It really just at
Mhm.
that point needed copy editing and proofreading.
Mhm.
But I was coming to them, and it's like, can you guys do the technical stuff that I don't want to do?
Right.
They did, and they created a package specifically for my needs, and I highly,
Mhm.
highly, highly recommend them. And
Okay.
I worked with them starting, gosh, close to the beginning of the year,
Mhm.
and we planned it out. They knew why I wanted to launch in October, and they just handled so much of the stuff that I just didn't want to deal with,
Right.
get it, converting it and making sure, and they were just amazing. They really were amazing. And they've also been helping me with the publicity. I'm still doing a lot of that on my own. I feel like as an author, it's your responsibility to sell your
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
You know
Mhm.
your work better than anyone else.
Mhm.
You need to get out
Yeah.
there and hustle.
Yeah, yeah, but it sounds so they helped you not only with kind of those final pieces of getting the manuscript in tip-top shape, copy editing, proofreading, but also like a launch strategy and how can
Yes.
you get it into Kindle format, and then
Yep.
you have it in, you get it up on Amazon, you have the descriptions,
They
and
did
then you
all
distribute
that.
like all that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's it's so important to have it. And they did some publicity, but you realize, and fully delegate that. It's like you own that piece for yourself because this is wonderful for everyone to take in. Like, no one's going to be as excited about as you are. Like, you're going to have
Yeah.
people on your team who are freaking excited, but it's your story. You lived it. You
Yes.
freaking breathed it. And so is a hope of yours for this book to help generate awareness for this platform for Cancer University? Do you see this as a tool that's going to help more people know that, hey, here's a spot where you can go as you're working through this horrible diagnosis of cancer? How do you see the book kind of servicing that larger mission, Cancer University?
We started with sort of a niche down view, which was,
Mm-hmm.
let's start with, can we just raise awareness about liver cancer and raise awareness
Okay.
about what it means when you have a cancer
Mm-hmm.
diagnosis? Because in the
Mm-hmm.
book, you get not only my point of view as a caregiver, but you get Adrienne's point of view as a cancer patient. So you have these two very different points of view going on in the book. And one of my favorite things that people have said about the book, and many oncologists have endorsed the book, that they've said that
Mm-hmm.
they feel like every medical student should read my book because it
Wow.
gives you such a deep understanding of what it's
Mm-hmm.
really like, because I don't hold anything back,
Yeah.
and that means so much to me. Like, I would be a big goal is to like have this become required reading for
Yes.
medical school students, and start
Yes.
there. And then from there, yes, raise awareness of my nonprofit and raise awareness
Mm-hmm.
of Cancer
Mm-hmm.
University. And it's really already doing that with all the publicity I'm doing. And
Mm-hmm.
it's been amazing. It really has, and having people email you and telling
Mm-hmm.
you what the book has meant to them. I mean, it's
Yes.
wonderful.
Oh my gosh. I love everything that you're doing, and I know that you are providing a huge service to lots of different audiences, the medical community, families who are going through this,
Yeah.
the actual person who's going through this, saying, okay, here's a road that someone has walked. Where's the best place for people to find out more about you, Andrea? Where can they find out more about you, book, Cancer University? Where do you want to take them?
I would say just go to betteroffbald.com,
Mm-hmm.
because all the links to me and Cancer U they're all there. That's a great place to start.
Yeah. How'd you come up with that title?
Oh, it's funny because there were some people in grad school that hated the title of the book. They thought it was too controversial, but luckily I had a
Mm,
great mentor who said, "So what?"
controversy can be a good. You want something
Yeah,
that gets people talking. Not
that's
everyone's gonna
right.
like it. Good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I came up with it. It's actually in the book about how Adrienne kind of used her hair as a shield in an art project. I wouldn't let
Mm-hmm.
her dye her hair until she was 14. And then as
Mm-hmm.
soon as she turned 14, it was off to the races. And so one year her hair went from being red, like bright, bright, bright cherry red,
Mm-hmm.
blue, purple, back to blue again. So when she was diagnosed with cancer, her hair was bright freaking blue. And she cut it off before she had chemo, and she shaved it into 4 mohawks, which she called her quad hog. And when she did that, we could see even right then that she had this like perfectly round head. And then when she started to lose a little bit of hair, she strangely enough actually did not lose all of her hair follicles. It was kind of interesting. But she for the first time started to realize how beautiful she was. And so it's not that, I say that, being bald means that you're better off sick or whatever. No, not at all. It's just that for her, without her hair, she couldn't hide anymore.
Right.
And, it's the first time where she looked in the mirror and thought she was beautiful. And
and
that was special. It really was.
It is. And you realize, I think, my sister did not lose all of her hair. My sister had brain cancer. And I look back when that was happening, when her hair was falling out, but she always kept like some strands were in there. And, it's interesting because again, it's like I was the one, I never really had any health issues, all these things. It was like, there's that movie Beaches. I don't know if you ever saw that movie.
Oh,
Beaches,
yeah.
But, my God. So if I was to watch it today, I'd be like, crying. But I so identified with that because it was, you look at that and you're like, why her and not me? And like, why this and not that? And I really kind of had this realization around hair, as we're talking about this Better Off Bald, like I always had this very long, like strong hair. And it was several years back. I've never lost all of my hair. I have not had cancer. Grateful for that. And hats off to anyone who has. If anyone's listening right now who's gone through the cancer journey, we salute you. But it was several years ago that I was just like, what would it be like to not have long hair anymore? Like, I think sometimes, hair is wonderful. You can have fun with it, especially as women, we kind of can get into our hair. But it's a whole other thing when we, have an experience where we just kind of let go of something that we just thought we'd always have, or that we identified so much with, and just say, who am I now without this piece? And the beauty comes from within, and the beauty is really your own strength. So Andrea, I want to thank you for being here. And I'd love to know, this show has been about being courageous and gutsy and really honoring this brave path that is out in front of us to walk. What's the gutsiest move you've made in your life, in your business, and how is it still serving you today?
I'm going to say the gutsiest move I've made recently is the decision to leave Los Angeles. I had wanted to leave for a long time. I was not happy living in the city anymore, and I was not in a happy marriage. And everyone tried to talk me out of it, except for my ex-husband, to his credit. And I just wanted to leave, and people got really hung up on about me moving to Alabama, which is where my sister was born and which is where a lot of my family lives. And it was not about the destination. It was about the journey. Like I needed that drive across the country to clear my head. I needed to just move and kind of be on my own again and reinvent myself again, but really find myself. When Adrienne died, I lost my identity. And I think it took me this long to get it back. It took me a long time. I'm going to cry.
Let it out. Please. I would be honored to, share some emotion with you. It's like when we tell these stories, and thank you for exhibiting this, modeling what it is to be touched by your work and touched by your own story, and to be human and that we feel. And I always tell women, I'm like, don't apologize for crying, and don't let it flow. I was working with a coach recently, and I'm like, something in like, I'm like, it's good. I'm just setting. It's really good.
I do have a gift. I have a gift for your listeners.
Yay, goody.
You're so funny. I love this woman, you guys. I love her. Oh, she's so cute. So if you go to cancer.university, since we're kind of in this perfect kind of phase right now, and you go to apply now, that takes you actually directly to our membership site and a membership application. And whether you're a cancer giver or a caregiver, cancer patient or caregiver, you can apply. Okay. And when you get to the menu where it says, how are you going to pay? You just say, I have a coupon code. And if you put in the coupon, Get Gutsy, all caps, all together, no spaces, that will give you a free lifetime membership to Cancer U.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
How generous. How generous of you. I mean, the internet is an awesome thing and a wild thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The internet did not exist when my sister Julie had cancer. And, you know, I was 15, 16 years old when this was going on. So my parents had the both, but mostly my mother. And, you know, I get emotional thinking about what more would have been possible for people going through what they were going through at that time, when you have more access to resources, experts, stories, tips, community, really that community. And so everyone, if you are, you know, dealing with cancer right now, or someone in your world is, please spread this episode, spread this opportunity. Thank you so much, Andrea, for your generosity and for your story about leaving Los Angeles. Like, isn't that a movie or a song? No, it was like a song. I'm leaving Las Vegas. Wasn't that Lost. Yeah. But that, you know, people are going to think you're nuts sometimes. Like, why are you moving to freaking Alabama? And because you were called home. There was this feeling of like being called home, going back to your roots. And some amazing things have happened for you since you moved back to Alabama, right?
Oh, yeah. I say now that if I had known how well it was going to turn out, I would have driven faster. So.
Oh, my goodness. Well, it has been freaking incredible to reconnect with you. Yeah. And congratulations for this masterpiece and for Cancer University and for your nonprofit and for allowing yourself to move into, you know, career coaching because you could, and it springboarded you into everything that you're doing today. And I want to really make that point before we wrap up, you know, that the field of coaching, I think, is a freaking magic zone. Like, I just feel like so many things happen for you when you say yes to the path of a coach, because it just gives you so much freedom and flexibility to go take it wherever you want to take it. Some of the best coaches move into writing a book, move into creating a community, into a membership, into whatever it is, moving from big old LA into Alabama, which is, you know, a much smaller state. But when you know that you have these skills that are transferable and that you can create anything wherever using the power of the internet and your own persuasive skills and like really seeing an opportunity and just jumping on it, that to me is when you've really, you've just totally tapped into your power. So that's what you've done, Andrea. It's been a pleasure to have you here today. Please keep me posted on everything. And we look forward to having so many people in our community come and join yours. Thank you again, Andrea.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks everyone for tuning in. This journey has just been an incredible ride, and it wouldn't be possible if you all weren't part of it. So I appreciate you being here, and I will see you next time.